Hello, I want to look at Britney Spears and take apart the testimony she gave, really analyse the things she said and what that might mean about her and about what she's been through. Before I do, I want to say that I'm sorry it's been such a long time. I didn't want it to be a long time. This is what I've been waking up to. And it went on all day into the evening. It got to the point where I was actually prepared to hire someone's shed yesterday to record in their garden because it was quiet. But today it's rained, and so finally the builders next door have had to stop construction. So I'm quickly making this in a bit of a rush before it gets dark. So I'm going to play what Britney has to say and pause every now and again to comment. I will talk about my hair in another video. Thank you for your tips. I really appreciated them. I just thought, wow, why have I never asked your advice before? But it hasn't gone well. As you can see, it's more yellow than ever, but I'm not going to take up time talking about that now. I think that belongs in a video about gaslighting, actually, because I have had so much of this, you know, that's all I've been experiencing at these different hairdressers. But anyway, for now, let's just focus on Britney.
The people who did this to me should not get away and to be able to walk away so easily. Recap. I was on tour in 2018. I was forced to do. My management said if I don't do this tour, I will have to find an attorney, and by contract, my own management could sue me if I didn't follow through with the tour.
It seems that most of her rights have been taken away, and I'll talk about this as we go through her testimony. But so in terms of her management, I don't know how much say she had over this contract. And even if she did sign it, I don't know how much of that was because she actually wanted to sign it, or how much of it was because of the pressure she was put under because of the conservatorship.
He handed me a sheet of paper as I got off the stage in Vegas and said I had to sign it. It was very threatening and scary, and with the conservatorship, I couldn't even get my own attorney, so out of fear, I went ahead and I did the tour. When I came off that tour, a new show in Las Vegas was supposed to take place. I started rehearsing early, but it was hard because I'd been doing Vegas for 4 years and I needed a break in between. But no, I was told this is the timeline and this is how it's going to go. I rehearsed 4 to 4 days a week. Half of the time in the studio and half of the other time in a Westlake studio. I was basically directing most of the show with my whereabouts, where I preferred to rehearse, and actually did most of the choreography, meaning I taught my dancers my new choreography myself. I take everything I do very seriously. There's tons of video with me at rehearsals. I wasn't good. I was great. I led a room of 16 new dancers in rehearsals. It's funny to hear my manager's side of the story. They all said I wasn't participating in rehearsals, and I never agreed to take my medication, which my medication is only taken in the mornings, never at rehearsal. They don't even see me. So why are they even claiming that? When I said no to one dance move into rehearsals, it was as if I planted a huge bomb somewhere. And I said, no, I don't want to do it this way. After that, my management and my dancers and my assistant of the new people that were supposed to do the new show all went into a room, shut the door, and didn't come out for at least 45 minutes.
So it sounds like, you know, a naughty kid at school who's just really so out of control that all of the teachers get together and discuss her and try and work out what they're going to do. You know, does she need to be expelled? This is getting really serious. You'd never think this was about an adult woman who's a superstar and who decides that she doesn't actually want to do a particular dance move. She's teaching her dancers how to perform them. All she wants to do is correct one move. You know, she has a better idea for how it should be done. And, you know, this is something that sounds very normal to me. I mean, even if you think about actors, they might prefer to do something in a slightly different way from a director, and maybe, you know, if they're really good and have loads of experience, that director might respect that. So this is just one dance move that she wants to do differently, and they're all having this meeting about her. If you knew that a room full of people who are supposed to be working for you, because they're all making their money from her and from her success, so if you knew that these people are in a room discussing you and and then they're going to come to a conclusion about you, but you're not invited to be part of that discussion. It's going to feel really humiliating, and you're going to feel quite powerless. So that in itself, I think, could be quite maddening.
Come out for at least 45 minutes. Ma'am, I'm not here to be anyone's slave. I can say no to a dance move. I was told by my, at the time, therapist, Dr. Benson, who died, that my manager called him in that moment and told him I wasn't cooperating or following the guidelines in rehearsals. And he also said I wasn't taking my medication, which is so I've had the same lady for the past 8 years give me my same medication, and I'm nowhere near these people. It made no sense at all. There was a week period where they were nice to me, and they said, I don't want to do the, they were nice to me. They said, if I don't want to do the new Vegas show, I don't have to, because I was getting really nervous. I said, I can wait. It was like, they told me I could wait. It was like lifting literally 200 pounds off of me when they said I don't have to do the show anymore, because I was really, really hard on myself, and it was too much. I couldn't take it anymore.
When she talks about pushing herself really hard, I think that's telling as well, that, you know, she puts all this pressure on herself and she thinks that she needs to live up to this certain standard all the time. And it seems like quite a full-on, almost outrageous standard. And I think this is one of the reasons why she didn't speak up sooner, because she seems to me to have a belief that she's not good enough. And when you have a belief like that, you push yourself really hard because you're always trying to be good enough. And a lot of people who become really successful have this core belief. We'll see later in this video how she talks about failing when she gets the result of a psychiatric assessment. She seems to see things in terms of success and failure. And I think that a lot of this has to do with her background, and I'm going to look more at that in another video too. But just keep in mind that people who believe they're not good enough often don't speak up when other people behave towards them as if they're not good enough, because they think it's true. She's also talked about how she followed the rules, but she still wasn't good enough. You know, that's the way she phrased it. So it seems like she really believes this of herself. And even though she's now beginning to see things more as they are, as it appears to me, you know, she's starting to see the level of control people have had over her and how that isn't right. But there's another part of her that for all of these years has just kept her mouth shut and thought that that this is how things have to be. And while some of that will be because that's what she's been told, that's what she's been taught, she hasn't been aware of her legal rights, she hasn't been aware that she's allowed to challenge this conservatorship and so on. There will be, I think, something else going on. A lot of people would have spoken up anyway in court. Even if they weren't allowed to challenge it, they would have been trying to. You know, they wouldn't have been able to help it. But if you believe you're not good enough, and if you believe that you're being punished because you're not good enough, then it makes sense that you would continue to accept that punishment over and over again and keep your mouth shut. She talks about how she felt ashamed and that's why she hasn't spoken up sooner, and how she didn't know if people would believe her. And I think that this, what she called actually embarrassment, I think that embarrassment is around her feeling like it's a punishment and this part of her believing that she deserves it. Because if you think you deserve it, why would you want to tell people it's happening? It just means they're going to realise that you are the kind of person who deserves this treatment. Otherwise, why would you be getting it? And that would be shameful. Why would it be embarrassing otherwise? It's not embarrassing if other people are being completely out of line, but it is embarrassing if you deserve it. People who've put up with abuse for a long time can also feel embarrassed about the fact that they have put up with it. They know that most people wouldn't, and even if Britney didn't have a clue how to get out of this situation, she might have had a sense deep down that most other people wouldn't allow this to go on. it can be so hard for people to forgive themselves for putting up with abuse for a long time, and really difficult to talk about with other people, because it's like admitting that you don't like yourself.
So I remember telling my assistant, but you know what, I feel weird if I say no. I feel like they're going to come back and be mean to me or punish me or something. 3 days later, after I said no to Vegas, my therapist sat me down in a room and said he had a million phone calls about how I was not cooperating in rehearsals and I haven't been taking my medication. All of this was false.
So one of the hallmarks of narcissistic abuse, this is what I'm trying to say, is making the victim feel like the abuse is their fault, making them feel like they imagine a lot of things and that they can't trust their own judgment. So that's where we have gaslighting, for example, but that's only part of it. The whole cycle of abuse is maddening, and the whole cycle of abuse leads you to lose trust in yourself and in your own experiences, because the person is love bombing you. So they're the good person, they're the nice person, they're really supportive, and then the next minute they are ripping you apart, you know, they're putting you down, and then eventually they're discarding you in a really cruel, cold way, and then the cycle might begin again. So that in itself can lead a person to not believe in their own experience, because somebody's the good person, the person who really cares, the person who loves me, but then at the same time they're my worst enemy. There's got to be something up with the way I'm viewing all of this. It must be me. So we can see so many elements of this in Britney's story. And this is one of those examples that people were nice to her face, they were listening to her, they were saying, yes, I understand that you need a break. They were being fake. Then they're going to her therapist behind her back and saying, actually, she's not cooperating. So they're telling on her. So all of this feels really creepy to me. And again, maddening. And I'm saying this every time I feel it, because the idea is that she is mad. You know, that's how she's being treated, as if she's mad. In other words, you know, what she thinks is just delusional. That's my impression of how she's being treated. You know, that she can't be trusted to have her own thoughts and to act on them. So everything has to be controlled for her. And so it's just ironic how these measures would make someone feel like they're going mad. And then, of course, we come to this whole idea of a therapist who is somehow, somehow has this agenda and is working with people who are actively trapping Britney, who are taking away her rights and controlling her. So how creepy is that, that you go to a therapist for help with your mental health, and here's what happens.
He immediately the next day put me on lithium out of nowhere. He took me off my normal meds I'd been on for 5 years. And lithium is a very, very strong and completely different medication compared to what I was used to. You can go mentally impaired if you take too much, if you stay on it longer than 5 months.
So she had no say in her medication. Sometimes that can happen to somebody. Times when somebody might be forced to take medication, or if they've been sectioned, so they've been deemed a danger to themselves or a danger to somebody else, and they have to take this medication whether they want to or not in order to keep them and maybe somebody else safe. But how on earth is Britney in a situation like that? Who is getting affected in a dangerous way by her not wanting to do one dance move? It's absolutely ludicrous. And they've also decided she's not taking her medication based on what? It doesn't sound like there's any evidence for that from what she's saying, you know, according to Britney. And I guess that, you know, it's important to keep remembering that we are just hearing one person's side of the story. And that doesn't mean that anything that Britney says isn't true, but just that, I don't want to be saying things that we don't really know 100% are true, because we've only got one person's word for this. You might also be forced to take medication if you are under a community treatment order. So I'm going to read you the rules for a CTO. The person who would benefit from the CTO as the least restrictive alternative consistent with safe and effective care. So this means that if they don't have the CTO, it's going to be more restrictive for them. In other words, probably they're going to have to be held in a mental health facility. So this enables them to be out in the community. So that means that their mental health problems are so severe that without this medication, they would need to be in a hospital. The mental health facility has an appropriate treatment plan and is capable of implementing it. And if the person has been previously diagnosed as suffering from a mental illness, there must be a history of refusal to accept appropriate treatment. And then when we look at what that means, that they haven't accepted appropriate treatment, in the reasons it says that they have to have had a relapse that's been a total nightmare for them. That's putting it in layman's terms. So they're avoiding a relapse because that would be really bad for them. It says that it would be followed by mental or physical deterioration, and it would justify them having to be treated in a hospital. And care or treatment in hospital resulted in or could have resulted in an improvement in or recovery from the symptoms of the mental illness. So each of the 4 points has to have a tick beside it for that person to have had a history of refusing to accept appropriate treatment. So you can see that it's not easy to get a CTO. The third reason as to why somebody can be forced to take medication is if they've been assessed as not having the mental capacity to make that choice for themselves. And I'm wondering if that might be what's been going on for Britney. I think either that's been happening because, and I say that because that's why she's apparently under the conservatorship in the first place, that she wasn't deemed capable of making the decision for herself. And I'll talk about that more in future videos. I'll talk about why that premise didn't seem to make sense in the first place and how it came to be that the court came to that conclusion. But it might be that that's why she's having to take lithium, or it might be that she didn't have to. She was just under the impression that she had to. But either way, the reasons she was given for why she needed to be put on it, that she wasn't complying because she'd come up with her own dance move, that she wasn't taking medication that she said she actually was taking, those reasons wouldn't justify being put on a different medication. So if what she's saying is true, and that's really why she was put on lithium, then that's really concerning that the therapist thought that this was appropriate. And it feels like, well, it is a huge breach of ethical guidelines. You can't put somebody on a really heavy medication because people are finding that they can't control their dance moves. It doesn't, it's obviously completely unethical and not helping the patient in any way. So she's on this medication she doesn't want to be on. She's explained to her therapist that she didn't stop taking the other medication, and he's not listening to her. He's telling her she has to take a drug that's going to have a huge effect on her and really make her feel terrible when she doesn't need to be on it, according to Britney. And she's got no say in this. And he's listening to what these other people are saying about Britney when they come and tell on her. If what she says is the truth, and it's not just her experience of it, she's not lacking in lots of information. If it's true that he prescribed this just because he was told she wasn't being obedient, or even if he was told more but decided to believe it all and take it all at face value without actually checking with Britney how she was doing, then that's again a massive betrayal. And he's not doing his job. He's not taking care of her mental health. Instead, he's following what her enemies, as they're behaving like, if all of this is true, are telling him to do.
But he put me on that and I felt drunk. I really couldn't even take up for myself.
And on top of all of this, on top of her exhaustion, on top of having no one around her that she can trust, she's also feeling completely out of control of her body. And that is a terrifying thing to go through.
I I couldn't even have a conversation with my mom or dad really about anything. I told them I was scared, and my doctor had me on 6 different nurses with this new medication come to my home, stay with me, to monitor me on this new medication, which I never wanted to be on to begin with. There were 6 different nurses in my homes, and they wouldn't let me get in my car to go anywhere.
So maybe the 6 different nurses, if you look at it in the most positive light possible, it could sound like they're all there to take extra special care of her in case she has a bad reaction and isn't doing very well. But why would you need 6 of them? From what she's saying, it sounds like they were all there at the same time. So it sounds more like they were prison guards. But I don't know if they were all there at the same time. Either way, it's a lot of different nurses to be dealing with. And she was on medication she didn't want to be on. It sounds like she felt like while they were monitoring her, she was sort of in the spotlight being focused on, and, as if she, it really feels like this big invasion of her privacy. And again, really humiliating. Nurses are supposed to be there to help you. I don't know what dose of lithium she was on. It can affect your ability to drive. There isn't a rule that says you must never drive if you're taking it, but maybe she was taking a lot of it. And if so, did she need to be taking a lot of it? And was this even about whether she could drive, or was it about a rule that she mustn't drive? Because from what she said, she was never allowed to drive. It wasn't just for this month while she was on this new drug. So it seems like these nurses are there to keep her prisoner.
Not only did my family not do a goddamn thing, my dad was all for it. Anything that happened to me had to be approved by my dad. And my dad he acted like he didn't know.
So again, it's this maddening behaviour. The dad would act like he doesn't know what's going on, like it's got nothing to do with him when he's around Britney. And so presumably she told him, I'm going through this, it's horrible, it's a nightmare. And he's saying, oh, I don't know about it. And yet he's the one in control of all of it. He's the one who's pulling the strings and telling people what to do in order to control Britney. So that's such a huge betrayal. You're going to feel like you're going crazy. Can you trust this person? Why did you think you could? What's wrong with your senses? Or could they always be trusted? Are you imagining that they're actually the ones in control? What's the truth here? And again, that could lead you to doubt your own experiences. Isn't that what going mad is all about? Not being able to trust your senses anymore. Not being able to trust your thoughts or your feelings. Not being able to trust what is real and what isn't real. Her sister has now come forward and said how, she just wants Britney to be happy. She's always been on her side. She just hasn't publicly said so because she's been waiting for her sister to say so. And that does seem a bit strange because in the past, she has talked about how the family really care for Britney and nobody understands. So she hasn't come across in this way before. So it does make it hard to not be a bit suspicious about why suddenly she seems to have changed her tune. And again, that sounds like a real source of betrayal for Britney. She's talked about her whole family betraying her and treating her badly. She hasn't said, except my sister. And her sister's also said something about how if Britney wants to live on Mars, that should be fine. Or if she wants to go into a jungle and have loads of kids, instead of coming back and just making, I can't remember how she says it, but something like making it really big or just being this amazing superstar, then that's fine as well. And it's interesting because both of those examples sound like crazy things to do. So it's kind of interesting that she's suggesting these crazy things as an alternative to her being a superstar. Again, it sort of suggests that how much Britney was overworked and how she had no choice in that was what was considered more sane. That's how it comes across to me anyway. It comes across as, well, my family wanted her to do well with her career, but if she wants to do something crazy, then I'm behind her. So again, it doesn't really feel respectful of Britney's sanity. It seems to be, again, putting her in this pigeonhole of being this mad woman who has to be humoured. And that's, again, crazy making behaviour, saying that to the press, people talking about her like this crazy woman. that happening all the time about you, constantly, and then you're living with all these nurses and all these different people collaborating together against you, you know, or for your captivity, for you not being allowed to have your own human rights, you know, all of that is crazy making, and it's going to make you behave, you would expect, in a slightly crazy way, because anybody would. If your life isn't normal, why would you pass every psychiatric assessment in a normal way? A narcissist can do something disturbing and abusive undercover. Other people don't actually know what's happened. And then the other person will react in a normal way. They might have a big emotional reaction because they've experienced a big emotional event. But then the narcissist will point to that reaction as evidence that they are crazy and that they're really unreasonable. And that way they can be a victim of their true victim's behaviour. And many people will buy into that and see that person as crazy. And that's what happened, I think, with Britney Spears. Now, I don't know if she has any kind of formal diagnosis, because that hasn't been shared with us. But even if she does, that doesn't mean that she's crazy. You know, it doesn't mean that she's completely deluded all the time. If, for example, she has bipolar disorder, does that mean that we shouldn't trust anything she says, that she's a complete Fruit Loop? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that at all. So, and a lot of us, you know, and we have been led to believe that she lost the plot, for example, when she shaved her hair off. But I've read that apparently, and I can't know for sure if this is true, but apparently this was because she'd been threatened with drug testing of her hair. And that was to do with the custody battle for her children. So if she had been taking some drugs, it would make logical sense for her to try to destroy that evidence. So that doesn't come across as madness. It doesn't come across as irrational, crazy behaviour. But even if there hadn't been a logical reason why she shaved her head, even if she'd been having what we call a nervous breakdown, what does that mean? Does that mean that she's crazy? No, it means that she was under a huge amount of stress. From not talking about any diagnosis publicly, that means that we can all assume the very worst, you know, that this woman is completely delusional and, you know, she has to be watched constantly because you never know what crazy thing she's going to do. So as long as we don't know, that's what we can all assume. And yet when we see her in interviews, she's talking very rationally and logically. She's able to think, she's able to self-reflect, she's very clear. And we don't see her doing crazy things on stage or suddenly acting erratically. So there's no evidence that she's off her head, you know. In the next videos, I'm going to start taking a closer look at Britney's family. So next time I'm going to look more closely at her dad. So I'm going to put this online, and if I manage to get any quiet time tomorrow, if the builders just stop for a moment, then I will record more and put that online. I've actually got my award. Here is my silver play button. Finally. I can't believe this day has actually come, because this was supposed to be delivered. Well, I was supposed to hear that I was getting one a long time ago. About, I think it was supposed to be within 3 weeks of hitting 100,000, and I didn't think I was going to get one because I don't have ads on my channel. So I thought, well, maybe I'm not going to qualify, and that was really annoying me because I don't even think that I shouldn't be getting ads on my channel. It's apparently, I think it's because I use the word abuse. But even when I don't use that word, I still don't get any ads on my channel. Presented to Live Abuse Free for passing 100,000 subscribers. Yay! We got there! Thanks to you. Please keep subscribing. Anyone who hasn't subscribed, come on, join us. And, you know, I will be, hopefully, you know, there will be a lot more videos in the future. So, jump on board. I'm going to leave you now with a friend I made last week. Hello. Hello. Have you come to say hello? Hello. Oh, it's nice to meet you. It is nice to meet you. What are you doing here? Are you having a nice day? Oh, well, that's good, isn't it? Mm. Sunny, isn't it, today? You've got a lot to say, haven't you? Oh gosh. Back. Hello. Hi. What's all that racket? What is it? You're being very noisy.